Right, so we fixing to shoot garage tape number 2. Shine a little light on it. So what we're going to do today is we're going to throw a candle lantern. Small candle lantern. What I'm doing with these is actually I'm trying to throw some of the things I used to throw a long time ago, but I haven't really thrown in quite a while. That way maybe some of the students haven't seen some of them. One of the things I used to do was I made 2 or 3 different size candle lanterns, and there's a lot of different ways to throw these, versions of the candle lanterns, but what I did I thought was always fairly simple, and I didn't take a lot of time cutting them out, but I tried to establish a reason why I cut out where I cut out. So first of all, just like everything we do, is we throw a good cylinder. Compress the bottom real good, throw a really good cylinder, and then we'll shape it. So hope everybody's doing real good out there, staying inside, obeying all the rules that we're supposed to be sticking to, social distancing and things. So as usual, I'm going to try and make everything in 3 pulls basically. So I want to pull a good cylinder. After every pull, I want to compress the rim. Second pull, depending upon how I feel about the clay, I might go ahead and start giving it just a little shape. And that's basically determined by how thin I got it on that first pull. So there's 2 pulls. About to make my 3rd pull. And this one, I'll even give it just a little bit more shape. You can tell I'm keeping it fairly dry. And really, if you make your piece in 2 or 3 pulls, that moisture really doesn't have a long time to soak in. So those are basically my 3 pulls. I'm going to go ahead and compress the rim. At this point, I'm going to take a rib and I'm going to go ahead and get all the moisture off that I can get off. What I'm doing is, with my inside hand, is pushing out against the rib, so I'm making a pull against that rib. So again, you can tell I've kind of started to set up my shape just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and clean the bottom up. And get as much weight out of it as I can. I'm going to go ahead now, take all the moisture out of the inside of the pot. Get a little bit more off of there. So now I'm going to come on with the rib on the outside, right at the bottom. I don't want to push out too far too quick. That's the cardinal rule, is you push out too much, you can't take it back. You can always push out a little more. So I did that. There's one pass. Here's another pass. And so really I'm just creating the belly that I want on the piece. And I'm leaving the neck, the top 2 inches or so. You can see I'm just kind of leaving up with a little bit of a concave curve on it. So one last push. I'm going to come up a little bit higher with that push. So I'm going to take the rib again. I'm going to go ahead and make a... So I let this top finger just kind of be a guide for the top. And now I'm going to push that top out a little bit more and get a little bit more of a curve. You can see the thickness of the rim, and the thickness of the rim is actually a little bit thicker than the wall of the pot. I'll go ahead and use my chamois and make it all nice and round. You can see I've got an air bubble right there. I'm not going to really worry about it at this point. Now, if I'm not happy with the shape, I'm going to go ahead and take that point of that rib right there, push it in and make a line, and then I'm going to flip the rib around, push it out even a little bit more. Now, the fellow that taught me at graduate school, Elmer Taylor, he always said that pots had distinguishing features just like on the human body. So that line right there kind of distinguishes between, you have, you know, your foot, your belly, your shoulder, and your neck, and your lip. Now if I wanted to push it out any further at this point, I might take my trusty Japanese throwing stick and go in and push it out a little bit further. I don't like to push it out too much with the stick. You'd prefer to do it more with your rib and your hand because it's a little bit closer. You have a little bit more control. Now at this point, that's pretty much the shape I want. So I'm going to go ahead, take that point again, kind of distinguish that line a little bit more. Now, I can take this tool if I want to, go ahead and clean up that bottom just a little bit more. I will trim it just a little bit down there, just kind of to clean it up. Now, at this point I want to take, and a lot of people will take this tool to make this line right here. I like to take this rib, I think it makes a better line, and just use this edge right here. Put my finger behind just to give it a little bit of back pressure. I'm going to do one line, two lines. Not going to mess with those too much. I'll clean them up just a little bit with a rib or with a sponge. Then I'll usually take this rib, come back, clean it up a little bit more. And I might put a spiral. I like to put that spiral, it just kind of gives it a little bit of tension. Almost looks like a finger pushing in on a balloon. Clean it up a little bit more. Depends on how I feel about this area right here. I might use my finger or the rib again to just kind of bring out that curve. Chamois the rim one last time. Now, what I like to do, like I say, my candle lanterns are fairly simple. I'll take this tool, this rib, and clean it up. I usually come back to right about where that spiral starts. I put 2 fingers behind the rib and I push in. And again, it still creates kind of that tension. I can clean that little area up there later. And I put 3 little lines. I remember one time I'd made 20 of these over the period of a day, and somebody was watching me and they said, "You made the same mistake on every one of those." But really wasn't a mistake. I meant to do it, as you could just see. So that's the basis for my candle lantern, and we're going to show you how to cut one out here in just a second. Okay, I've let this dry to leather hard, and it's a little bit drier than I would like. But what I do is I just go in and I cut out what I call a leaf pattern. And it just, again, it depends on how tall the pot is, how many leaves I'll cut out. Kind of do an old automotive pinstriping technique to do this. I don't know if you can tell, but if you look at my little finger, it's rested out here, and it's my anchor point to do my swivel on. I will usually cut out 4 or 5. You know, most of the things you want to do an odd number. So on this one, this one in the center, I just might do 3 leaves. Then I'll come back on this one. And, you know, there are a lot of different candle lanterns, a lot of different techniques to cut with. I went to school with a fella, and man, he had more negative space than he had positive space on his candle lanterns. I really liked them, but it wasn't what I wanted to do or convey. Now, what I'll normally do is let this sit for just a little while, and then I'll come back with this X-Acto knife and just go ahead and cut a bevel. It's a little bit easier if you'll let it sit to cut that bevel. I always thought it made it look a little bit cleaner and made your pot look a little bit lighter. I'm not really going to mess with it and clean it up till I let it dry quite a bit more. If you notice, I'm cutting all the cuts going the same direction on each. Then I'll flip it over and I'll do it here. And I used to do these. This pot's probably 7 inches tall. I used to do the larger ones. The larger ones had a lid, and they were probably 13 to 14 inches tall. I also did a smaller version that was about half this size. And back then, the old scent burners were really popular. Now the one thing you have to realize when you do the scent burner is if you put a candle in here and light it up, it creates a lot of gaseous matter inside, and so they will actually build up and it'll ignite those gases and flash. So one of the things, if you're doing it as a incense burner or a wax burner, what I used to always do was take a rib, bend it like this, and do 3 cutouts along the rim, and that way any gas was able to flow out on those semicircles that I cut in the rim, and that way you didn't get that gas buildup. So that's it. Now put a candle in there after it's fired, and we're going to shine a little light.